right. Well, I'm Corey Hicks. Welcome back. Today's lesson is going to be talking about creating a practice regimen. And that's one of the questions that I get most often from my students is going to be, how do I structure it? What items should I work on? And that type of thing. So the first thing that you need to do is figure out how much time a day that you can practice. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you have to practice to 8 hours a day, but it really depends on what area that you want to improve on. Okay, so if you are the type of person that is going to work towards being a professional guitar player, that is going to be a different set of skills than somebody that just wants to play for fun. But we're going to start off with just the basics, and then if we accomplish these goals, then maybe we can talk about all the other additional stuff, okay? So I have done a few different videos on scales and practicing things in Cycle 4, basic theory, and that type of thing. So this topic of just core studies is going to be something that I would probably recommend doing in the beginning of your practice regimen. That way you can save things like working on songs and repertoire and techniques and that type of stuff later on. Most people find those things to be a lot easier to focus on. So essentially getting, the boring stuff out of the way first, okay? And so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to practice one key a day and get familiar with all of the different things that go into that particular key. I'm going to use, what should we start with? I usually do C, so let's do something completely different. Let's use G major, okay? So G major, first of all, we need to know the notes that are in that key, okay? We're just talking about the major scales, so G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G, okay? And the first thing that I'm going to do is put on a background pad. You can make this in GarageBand with a MIDI keyboard. You can get one from the internet. You can get one from YouTube. But the idea is that somebody or something is playing a G chord in the background so that you are able to use that as a reference point, meaning that all your G's are going to sound like home or tonic. All your B's are going to sound like major thirds, that type of thing, okay? Usually I would kind of show that, but this is kind of just a quick rundown video. Note recognition, let's start there, okay? So I'm going to try and play. Those are all my G's on my guitar. You can do that like an octave method, like I just did it. I'm just finding the octaves of those G notes. Okay? I can also do that by string. I can start off in the low E string. I can play a G here and there. The last note is a G, right? I can do that. Or now I'm moving to the D string. Obviously the G string, right? And then I have, right? The idea with this is that you're able to find that note on command. So if I have a melody, I'm just going to come up with a melody here. There we go. There you go. you can find that melody all over the place. Okay? And so this is going to kind of help us to put the neck together with the note recognition. Now, if you want to, for those of you who are really gung-ho about this stuff, you can go through all the rest of the notes on the fingerboard and do those in note recognition as well with the key of the day. But for today, we're just doing G, okay? And then next, I am going to practice all of my scales, okay? So the lowest note I have on the neck is E. So E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So this is going to be my G major scale in the open position. Now you can get these patterns from any number of sources or just send me an email, okay? And I have shown some of those things before. The next one is going to start on F sharp. F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A. Okay? So now I have the first 5 frets of the neck basically mapped out, right? Then, starting from G, I have G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. That's going to take us up to the 7th fret. And then I have a pattern starting on A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. Then one starting on B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. Then I have one starting on C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E. One starting on D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. One starting on E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So now I have the entire neck, okay? And this is kind of a prerequisite to everything else. You do need to have all of these scales mastered, okay? And so what I could do is play up one and down the next one, up the next one, down the next one, up the next one, and down the next one. You get the idea, right? You could also do things like taking 2 strings at a time, right? Something like that, or these are all limiting exercises to kind of find your way around. But my favorite thing to do after you play all your scales and you get them all memorized is something called the continuous scale exercise. And this is where you start on any given note, and it's kind of like hot potato. So just using 8th notes, I'm going to not stay in the same position. Get it out of there as quickly as you can, right? Get off that pattern as quickly as I can, getting out of there, right? Right, so you can play. Right, play any number of things to kind of get yourself around, okay? So that's your scale practice, and of course you have this pad on in the background playing all these different G's, right? So next, we can go through and map out the basic harmony for this scale, okay? So we have major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. Major on the first note of the scale, minor on the second, minor on the third, major on the fourth, major on the fifth, minor on the sixth, diminished on the seventh. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. This means I'm going to have G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp half diminished, back to G. So what you could do is go through all the possibilities of each one. So if I have G chords, I can say that's a G, 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 that's a G. I could go through all my caged chords. That's a G, 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 that's a G. I could do this for all of the chords in this key, right? My C's. Here's a C, 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 right? Here's a D, 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 here's a D. Now, you have to go out and find these things, of course. This lesson is not about me teaching you each one of these things. These can be found in any number of books. I'm just telling you what you have to practice, right? So it could be the 7th chords, right? Let's just say I have that D7 chord. I have this one, and and then this one, 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 this one. These are all D7s. Right, so you can play any number of those D7 chords, E minor chords, whatever chord it is, right? You can work on inversions, like here's a G over B, right? That type of thing. So you have a command of the neck because, you're not always going to play this G chord in a song, right? You may play that G chord in a song. Okay? Maybe adding some different, color tones to those things. Here's a G6. Here's a C major 7 sharp 11, 9, and 13. Right? E minor 9. Right? E minor 9 in a different spot. Right? Or here. So you have all these different things that you can kind of work on. Books such as Ted Green's Chord Chemistry, that type of thing, can really help to fill out that. So if you're just spending 15 minutes on your scales, don't spend 3 hours until you're done. Just 15 minutes a day until and every day you would practice until you get it down. You don't have to learn all these chords in one go. You just add a new voicing every day or two until you start building up that chord vocabulary. So you don't have to do all this at once, right? That's the whole thing about a maintenance practice regimen. Maybe you only get through the bottom part of this one pattern day one. Good, fine. But then add the second part of that pattern on day 2. The whole point of a practice regimen is to say, these things are going to take me a year to get down. So I'm just going to one day at a time just start working through each concept until I get comfortable with it. Okay? All right, so now we have the scales of G major, and we have the chords that are diatonic to G major. We've thrown in some inversions. We've added some tensions and those types of things to kind of spruce it up a bit. Now we're going to go to triads, specifically 3-note structures of those same chords, right? So I would have G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, and F sharp diminished, okay? I'm just going to do these on the top 3 strings. So my lowest is C major, right? I have this, and then D. Then we have E minor, F sharp diminished, G, A minor, B minor. Okay? So we have all of the triads in order. But there's inversions, right? So if I have G here, I have G here, and I have G here. A minor, I have my lowest A minor, which is here. And the next one, and the next one. B minors, C majors, D majors. Hey, that guy looks familiar, right? How many of you were listening to me talk about triads being like, I don't get any of this, and then you saw me play one that's right like that. Latch onto that, right? You can play that. You know this triad, okay? But instead of just thinking of it as a fingering, like, hey, it looks like a triangle, think of it as A, D, F sharp, right? Or as the chord tones. This is the 5th, the root, and the 3rd. Then in the next inversion, I have root, 3rd, 5th, or 3rd, 5th, root. Right? Take the time to go through and learn those things, right? And then what I like to do is I like to take these triads and I like to make them mobile. I like to make them something that I could actually use. So I might, what would I do? I might do a little triadic thing, right? Right? So I can move through the whole thing, right? So I was just going... Okay? So those are the triads, and then you can move those to the next set of strings, which would be strings 2, 3, and 4, G and G and G and G and A minor and A minor and A minor and A minor. Then we have B minor, B minor, B minor. Then we have C major, which is here and here and here and here. Then D major, which is D and D and D and D. And then E minor, which is E minor, E minor. You get the idea, right? And so you just go through all the triads in that key. What separates a lot of really good guitar players from those who are still learning or intermediate level is not talent. It's just they just have the tools at the ready. Imagine yourself as just like, maybe a chef who knows where all the spices are and knows exactly where to put them, right? You just know where those things are, right? The fact that I can find a D major 7 in first inversion that quickly doesn't mean I'm better than you are. It just means that I've located that and retained the information, right? You have to have your relationship with practicing has to be such that you can not feel overburdened by learning this stuff, right? I often get students that are like, well, why do I have to learn that? Well, so that you have it someday, right? You don't just practice whatever's in the songs you're learning. The real thing is, if you practice all this stuff every single day, when you do see a song that has that material in it, you already can get through it. I think that a lot of students need to realize that that's actually the key to being able to play music and have fun with it, is you want to learn songs. We all want to learn songs. But how do you learn songs quickly? Well, if everything in that song is brand new, it's either too high of a difficulty level for you, or it's going to take you a really long time, right? So if everything in the song is something you've seen before, then you can instantly play it. Hey, Corey, play a B-flat major scale. There you go. I've played that a million times. That's why I can find it so quick. It has nothing to do with, like, I wasn't born knowing that. I just put that in my practicing regimen so that I could find it, okay? And so something really important to know is just your core practicing session is going to be putting all of these nuts and bolts together. And don't worry about that you're never going to use something. Well, why would I take the time to learn that D major 7 in first inversion that you just showed? I'm never going to play that chord. How do you know? How do you know that, right? That chord actually... That chord is, I forget the name of the song, but it's a country song that I played when I played with the house band at Billy Bob's, Texas. And we played, the song has these inversions of these chords. Which are first inversion major 7th chords. Now, a country musician is the last person that's ever going to say, oh yeah, that's something I want to practice. But can you imagine never seeing that before, and then it's all of a sudden in a song? You're trucking along learning the song, and it gets to that chord, and all of a sudden you have to stop for 45 minutes to play this chord or figure it out what it is, right? Or you fake it and do something else, and then it doesn't sound right. So the point is that if you want songs to go really fast, you have to learn all the stuff that you're going to see in those songs, okay? All right. So we've learned all our triads, strings 1 through 3, and on 2 through 5, or 2 through 4, excuse me, and then we're going to learn our arpeggios in the key. So I look at arpeggios as 4-note structures, okay? So my G major 7 arpeggio, G, B, D, F sharp, okay? So those are the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th of the G major scale. And then I go to the 2 chord, A minor 7. The 3 chord, B minor 7. Here's the 4 chord, C major 7. 5 chord is D 7. The 6 is E minor 7. And the 7th is F sharp minor 7 flat 5. So again, and you can hear that all of those tones sound like they all go together. That's because it is the diatonic scale, right? Everything I played was just a note from G major. The G major 7 arpeggio is G, B, D, F sharp. The A minor 7 arpeggio is A, C, E, and G. The B minor 7 arpeggio is B, D, F sharp, and A. The C major arpeggio is going to be C, E, G, and B. The D7 arpeggio is going to be D, F sharp, A, and C. The E minor arpeggio is going to be E, G, B, and D. And the F sharp minor 7 flat 5 is going to be F sharp, A, and then we have C, and then we have E. There it is, yeah. So it's just every other tone. So now I have the arpeggios in that key, the scales in that key, the triads in that key, the chords in that key. I'm saturating my ear with G major. So at this point, you could get a book such as this lovely thing right here. So this is Reading Studies for Guitar, or any number of books that show you how to do sight reading. And then you would sight read in the key of G. For those of you who don't do that, don't worry about that, but that's just an additional level of saturation within the key for that day. And then finally, you're just going to go online and find a backing track in the key of G major. And one of the things that you're going to find is that it's a lot easier to find and play things in G major now that you've been spending most of your day doing it. Right, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to find things in that key once you've kind of taken, that hour or whatever it is to kind of work through that. And you could also take it one step further. Maybe you're going to learn a song in the key of G. A student of mine and myself were going through Cliffs of Dover by Eric Johnson. Due to copyright, I'm not going to play exactly the thing, but there is a part of the song that goes... trying to alter it a little bit, but essentially the ascending arpeggio thing is going... Okay? He's just going up a G major scale. When I learned that song as a kid, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that it was just a G major scale. I didn't realize that it was just everything that had to do with G major. So it would have gone a lot faster if I would have known those structures, and that's the point. When I first learned that song, I was probably 14, 15 years old, something like that, and it took me 3 months. It probably would have taken me 3 weeks if I would have just known all of the chords of G major, all the scales of G major, if I would have known, all the chords that are available in the triads, the arpeggios, and that type of thing. I wouldn't have been surprised. It wouldn't have been new material. So that's the whole point of putting on a practice regimen like this, is you are investing in your future. You are making sure that songs in the future go quicker because you already know the material that will be in it. Okay? For those of you that want to play in a band, I would say the bare minimum of tunes that you have to learn to be in a band is 40. What if somebody in a band gets fired on a Saturday night? They call you on a Sunday and say, hey, first gig is Wednesday. You have 3 days to learn 40 tunes. Unless you're able to put together things really fast, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to get 5 songs in and quit, So remember, all of this practicing stuff is not just to memorize random musical stuff. It's to make your song and repertoire learning go faster. Look at your practice as like latency, right? Computers, the way that they go faster is they get smaller. The very first computers were slower and they were, large, right? So if I have 2 things here and I have information that has to go between 2 things, it's going to take a certain amount of time. How do I make it go faster? You shorten the distance. So if I ask you to say a B major scale, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and it takes you 10 seconds, your practicing goal is to make it take 9 seconds, 8 seconds, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Make it almost instantaneous so that you can play that again super fast. So you don't have to think about it. Okay? And then if you can do these things fast, then when you have to learn them, the songs go fast. This is how maybe you've been to a wedding where you've given a request to the band. You're like, hey, play this Britney Spears song or whatever. And they can play it. That song's not in their repertoire. They probably put their iPhone up. They listen to it. Oh, yeah, that's a 1-6-2-5, the key, blah, blah, blah. And then they start playing it. I can't tell you how many times I've had to play a song right on the spot at a wedding or some sort of private event as a request. And we've had to pull it off. Did it sound exactly like the recording without a lot of practice time? Of course not. Did we get through it enough so that we could get paid? Yes. Okay? So just remember, your practicing time is not to just randomly do boring stuff. It's an investment in your repertoire learning in the future. The more structures you can find on your instrument now, the easier songs you will learn later on. I actually tried this with a student of mine. There's a very famous Eagles song that has a B harmonic minor solo in it. And it goes a lot quicker if you know the scale before you attempt the solo. Okay? All right. So last little word of advice here. As you are writing these things down in your journal, you typically write down, the date at the top. Then you'd write, warm up, whatever exercises you're doing for that. It could be, these types of things. Don't poo-poo those either. These are helpful for practicing and, developing facility on the instrument. You can always go faster, right? No matter what tempo you can play that at, you can always play it cleaner and faster. So maintain your tempos in your notebook. If you can do that at 16th notes at 120 beats per minute, go for 130. Go for 132. Keep upping that. And then your practicing notebook, you would write today's key, G major. Today's scales, however, whatever tempo you were able to do that in, what patterns you talked about. Did you get the whole neck? Did you go up and down each pattern? Were you able to do the little hot potato game, right? And then you'd write down the chords in the key that you did that day, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. Then you'd write down the triads, right? I was able to do the root position triads on strings 1 through 3. I didn't get to the other ones. Okay, fine, right? So you write that down. Now you know what to practice tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to do first inversion triads on the top 3 strings. Next day I'm going to do second inversion triads on the top 3 strings, okay? Arpeggios. I did root position, diatonic, 7th chord arpeggios. I only got to the 4th arpeggio. Great, just write it down. Write it down. Now you know where you need to pick up tomorrow, okay? And then, maybe record your playing to a backing track, right? You can listen back to it and be like, oh, I don't like that lick there. Well, then stop playing it, right? Or adjust it, right? Conception is the term I use for basically creating your own personal style and being able to have you just have a constant beat on your playing. You're like, well, there's this one thing that I do that's kind of annoying, and I'm going to start weeding it out of my playing. So you start paying attention to those things, listening back to your recordings, that type of thing. And then, this whole thing may only take an hour of your day. I do this in the very beginning, like 5 a.m. in the morning. I get up with a cup of coffee, and I go through all of these core studies myself. And by the time you realize it, right, you are already done. And then you can move on to learning songs. Then you can move on to, improvising or jamming or learning a solo by your favorite artist or learning licks or some cool video you saw on YouTube or something like that. But at least you have the core stuff under control. And then you would just, the very next day, move it to a different key. Once you have that one key, right? And I like to do cycle 4. So C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, F sharp, B, E, A, D, G, and back to C, right? In other videos, we've talked about that. C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, F sharp, B, E, A, D, G. Note recognition, using all the different notes on the E string, the A string, moving on through all those. Okay, last thing for today. This is going to be what I call the performance gap. Now, this is a philosophy of practicing and getting better at music, but it works for pretty much anything you want, okay? So let's say a song is this difficult to play, and your proficiency level's right here at the same as that song, okay? So as a human being, you're going to fluctuate, right? Maybe you had too much Alfredo last night and the sodium is making you a little groggy or something like that. Or maybe you've had too much coffee or something like that, right? And so we're always going to fluctuate because we're human beings, right? This is why some days you're like, how is it possible that I messed that lick up? Or I used to play the song a lot better. Or wow, I can't believe I played that song better today, right? Because we fluctuate, okay? So the goal is you bump up your proficiency level. You're still going to fluctuate because you're a human being, but you're up here. So it doesn't matter if you have the flu, right? You're still not going to mess up that song because you're so far above it. Think of like Michael Jordan playing basketball with a bunch of 6th graders. It doesn't matter if he's 90, he's still going to kick their butt, right? Okay? So that is what we do. This is why guys like me went to school and learned jazz theory and learned fusion and all these other styles of music. It's not because I necessarily want to be a bebop guitar player. It's so that when I do a country gig or a worship gig or a pop rock gig, I am so comfortable that I'm not going to make a mistake. Imagine that. If 99% of your mental faculties were just chill on a gig or a performance. This is where performance anxiety comes from, right? 99% of your brain is just chilling because you can do all sorts of things. You can play all your scales while you're talking to somebody, and guess what? You're not going to miss a single note. Why? Because you've done it so many times. This is super important. So you practice it not until you get it right, but until you can't get it wrong, okay? So just remember, the performance gap idea, the reason you're increasing your proficiency, the reason you're practicing a lot of this stuff is not so that you can be some whiz at scales and just be kind of like a theory geek or something like that, but so that the easy stuff is easier, right? And this moves all the way up, right? All right, so just remember those things. And again, don't practice till you get it right. Practice till you can't get it wrong. Go for the repetitions, okay? And that'll be it for today. So I know this was a longer lesson, but I did want to kind of go in depth into some of the practicing things. This isn't about how to practice each individual element, remember. This is just the overview of how to structure a practice, right? And then on top of that, you can use Excel spreadsheets. You can use all sorts of other things. I used to use calendars to document my practicing. I used to look at it like sports statistics, really. Be like, all right, this month I averaged 6.8 hours a day of practice, right? And I would keep these numbers going. And it's actually kind of a cool thing, right? You kind of maintain all of your stats and everything, and you try to get better. You try to improve in each area. And the better you get, the quicker the boring stuff will go, right? So when I practice my sight reading studies now, it goes a lot faster than it did when I was a teenager. And it's a lot less boring now, too, and I actually enjoy it because I'm better at it, okay? And you will be, too. All right. Peace. God bless. We'll talk to you next time.